taste of whips and chains. I got a fever cause I feel you coming. I can't keep running, baby. My oxygen's depleted. I can't keep hiding, baby. Your love was all I needed. Seems like just yesterday. Please, yesterday don't come my way. I submit I am no fighter. Hands around my neck get tighter. And I ain't drinking from a poison well. My love for you is clouded by a spell. I'm drowning back where you wanted me to be. And like a burden, baby, you bring me down. Your touch was warm, but you're so cold-hearted. And now I rue the day you come around. Though we were damned before it even started. I can't keep running, baby. My oxygen's depleted. I can't keep hiding, baby. Your love was all I needed. Seems like just yesterday. Please, yesterday don't come my way. I submit I am no fighter. Hands around my neck get tighter. And I'm drinking from a poison well. My love for you is clouded by a spell. I'm drowning back where you wanted me to be. And I know I said that I was done with you. I spun from a tangle kind of truth. Looks like I'm back where you wanted me to be. 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 I'm drinking from a poison well. My love for you is clouded by a spell. I'm drowning back where you wanted me to be. And I swear I said that I was done with you. I spun from a tangle kind of truth. Looks like I'm back where you wanted me. Looks like I'm back where you wanted me. Looks like I'm back where you wanted me to be.
Whoa!
You know, I was just talking to
Yeah.
Kellen about this project, the
the
flat tops.
flat tops.
And he was like, "You guys got to do that again. That was so much fun."
Yeah.
And
We do gotta do it again.
we do got to do it. And I think we have plans to do another volume 2. Probably just we'll keep doing that periodically. I think,
Right.
You know.
Right.
And
But welcome back to Van Philosophy. Thanks for joining us another week. We've got a really cool story. It was suggested by Sherry, one of our patrons, good friend, super cool chick. Go check out Southern Paranormal.
oh, we're gonna say it wrong.
I know, I don't want to say it wrong.
Sherry, you can remind us again what
I
that
think
is
it's
in the comments.
Southern Paranormal Investigations.
Okay.
I think that's what it is. I just didn't. I was so scared to mess it up. It's like when we first started playing music together. People were like, "I really, man, your band is so real.
Yeah.
You guys are the best."
Yeah. They'd be like, I don't want to say their name wrong.
Yeah, there's like that one girl that made like a fan video, and it was like Roshambeaux.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And that was the name.
I remember
Because
that.
our we're sorry.
That sounds cool though.
It does sound cool.
Yeah.
We're Roshambeaux. But yeah, we have a cool story about Ed and Lorraine Warren and all the spookies and all that cool stuff. What's up, Rachel? Thanks for joining us in the chat. Hope you're doing well. Sherry,
Southern
it's Southern Spirit Paranormal.
That's what it is.
There it is, and
Go check it out.
go check it out. But before we get into the story tonight, what have you been up to, Kyle?
Let's see. What have I been up to? Ooh,
What have you been doing?
feels kind of oddly good.
I've been getting fresh.
Well, I've been working with dark sales a little bit this week,
Yeah.
and also a project in the Maelstrom studio as well. That's where we recorded the song that you listened to before we started. So I've been doing a little bit of work with them, and also had a carpentry project come in, and it's doing like some repair work on this. It's almost a 200-year-old house.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of it was cool to see like handmade nails and just like logs that were kind of cut up to fit and things, you know, and it was like, this person built this with their hands, you know what I mean? Like they didn't have
With
power
the hands.
tools, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so
Which is an argument to be made that, like, you know, you're still making it with your hands.
you still, but you know, it's like you have nail guns and
with your
and-
hands.
Yeah, yeah. But this person definitely like put a lot more sweat in than I
Right.
did, you know?
Right.
And so it's kind of cool to see the history, but also and kind of almost be a little worried of being like, I don't want to mess this up. This is like history, and I have to repair it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's cool. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to?
Man, I had all these 10 billion different projects. I'm not going to go into them in detail at all. That's me. So what have you been up to? I'm just kidding. Freaking going.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. We've got like a release thing coming up at the shop next week. We've got, man, we're gonna be stocked out hopefully by next week with everything else. We're working on projects trying to do that. I've actually been talking to you about some of it because we're redoing one of the rooms, like our main D&D room. If any of you guys are into D&D, we're doing like this total makeover of the room. We're doing like a digital screen, live maps table and stuff. So I taught Kyle, the new carpentry man, and we're going to help him figure it out. And then we're going to design it all up. We're getting some pieces for that. So I'm trying to plan all that out in my head.
I think that'll be fun.
It's going to be fun.
I'm kind of excited to work
It's like
on
it's going to be like building like a theater set.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause it's going to be like a tavern where you go on your adventures and all that kind of stuff. Been doing that. Been hanging out. Man, I have this pinched nerve in my freaking shoulder. I don't know if I talked about it the last time I was doing this or not. Was I?
No,
Probably.
I mean, you talked to me about it, but I don't think we talked about it on like the episode.
So, I finally went back to my old chiropractor in the town over, and he knows what he's doing. And I got that treated up yesterday. And I'm feeling a lot better, but it's still kind of bothering me. But he actually knew what it was, so he told me exactly what I need to do to kind of like help
so it's
it
like it's
along
this
the way.
disc, and you gotta stretch like this. or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. Also, and a fun little like side note, you know, I did have like a day the other day where it was like, and I don't know if I would love to know if any of you guys felt this. Maybe you did too. I don't know. Remember that day I texted you? I was like, I'm having a rough day.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, call me if you can. And I didn't know because I got so busy.
Yeah,
at
I was
work.
like, yeah, just give me like I'm on my way home. Call me, you know, whatever.
Okay, so the reason I play music and the reason I am a lot of the man I am today, there was my nanny, Chastain, which is my father's mother. She played music, I mean, till the day she died, she was playing music all the time. And I'd gone through some rough stuff over the past year and everything, and you start thinking about sad things, and you start kind of working through some of this stuff in your head, and I'll be damned if like I was sitting there, like we were driving, I was just feeling kind of sad, and there was like a traffic stop where it was like you expect a 1-lane road, blah blah blah, and we stopped in the road on the way to work, and it was right there where her gravesite was. So I'm just like sitting there, and I looked over and I was like, let's turn in there. Went down there, and like, because I hadn't been back to her grave like years.
Yeah.
Like it's been a while. But like, you sit there and like I found it, and then, I mean, as soon as I just bawled like a baby. Because like you're sitting there thinking about all the things that's going on in your life. You're missing having that other person in your life to share it with and talk to, maybe get some advice from, because then you don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
The whole human experience, yada yada yada. But even though that day was really sad, I found it like, I don't know, empowering in a way.
Yeah.
Because like, and I don't know what it was. I know we're talking about some paranormal stuff here, but she's always with me, in all kinds of weird ways, whether that be in guitar tracks on albums or just like help guiding me, throughout every day. And I don't know what that is. I don't know what that whole spiritual thing is. If you have a ghost or what that is, there something implanted, like a thought? So like the thought of her and how she would react, is that what's guiding me? I'm not sure. But I did find it like a good release, and I felt like I really did have a conversation with her.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really understand it at all, but I know what you mean, and I think what it is I've said this before. I think it's like when you go somewhere, you leave a footprint.
Yeah.
And I think yeah, that's something we physically do. But I think when we talk to other people, like you affect your environment, and that environment might be another person or the way the other person thinks or feels or
Right.
or perceives you. And I think that like, you know, it's just like that footprint. It's like I knew that person was there, and I knew they did this and they did it that way. I think that's like all throughout life.
Right.
And yeah, it's like when someone's gone, it's like they're not gone until you stop thinking about them.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like it actually does. It feels more than just thinking about them. It's actually there's something to it. you
Right.
know? Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's something to any of that stuff. I mean, you have to remind yourself. I'm saying that like I have to remind me. I'm not telling you what to do.
Jay's gonna tell you what to do.
Yeah. But
Listen to him.
but you have to remind yourself, like, even like through the sad times, and the reason why we feel sad is because we're supposed to work through those things.
Yeah.
And because like any day of the week, I'd be sitting there, I could talk about anything, do all that, but then you hit those days where it's really overwhelming. You got to face that shit like right on and deal with it right then. If you try to bury that stuff, man, that stuff comes back.
Yeah. Oh,
Awful.
for sure.
So
For sure.
if you have any advice for me, don't bury your feelings or thoughts about stuff. Work them out right away, or they will come back and fuck you up and fuck your friends
that's
up.
the
and
thing.
fuck
like
your,
people will tell you, that, like
everybody
you
up,
need to
man.
man up and like,
Right.
you know,
right.
and it's like no, that's not what being a man is at
Right.
all. You know.
Yeah. Rachel
Yeah.
here says hugs. Thanks. Look, here we go. Visual
Hugs.
hug.
Aw.
What's up, Nancy? Look at that little. That's a crazy emoji thing. You see that? It's like a.
What is that?
It's a lizard person.
I thought it was like I looked at it real quick and I thought it was Boba Fett waving,
Maybe.
but I think that's just like my
It's just where your brain
like
goes.
Star Wars. Like
Yeah.
everything is Star Wars.
It's
to
all
me. Like
yeah,
everything.
Everything. Oh look, Obi-Wan. But we do have some shows coming up. We're actually playing an acoustic gig tomorrow in Dahlonega. That's been the tie us off venue. Same place, Shenanigans. I think we're going to do acoustic guitar this time.
Yeah.
So we're going to change it up a little bit. And we are playing inside because,
It's cold.
it's cold. So if you're around the area and all that kind of stuff, come join us. Come hang out.
Seating's kind of limited in there, so like be there a little early.
Be there a little early.
And,
come hang out.
But yeah, it should be good.
We'd love to see you. And we do have some shows getting on the books. I don't know if it's quite announced yet.
Yeah, we're gonna announce probably like later next month or certainly by March.
Yeah.
But we have some dates that are confirmed. We're gonna be doing a little bit of traveling to come see some of y'all, and so the best way we said it in the blog this week. The best way is just get on the mailing list.
Oh yeah.
And you just go to the link in our
Or
website.
be here.
Or be here because we
here.
talk about
You
it.
guys
We
will
do this-
know.
We do this every 2 weeks or twice a month, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and yeah. So we'll
Every
let you
2
know.
weeks is twice a month. Twice a month is every 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, but what if you have like a 5-month week?
A 5-month week. That would
I
be,
mean, I'm sorry.
That's like facial compression.
A 5-week month, rather. A 5-month week. Oh my god, I've had
those. I've had them. Yeah. I've been there, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so stuff coming up. We are going to be hitting the road, hitting some cool places, returning back to some old places, and doing the whole Jim Jammaroo.
Yeah.
So look out for that. So, with all of our stuffs caught up and all of our things, sit back, hang out, get in the chat, talk to us about this thing. But let's get into the story of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Okay, so Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I think we got a picture of them.
Yeah.
They're probably like the most famous paranormal investigators in history. They've worked on, I think they said 10,000 cases.
Right.
Of which many have been like made into books and movies. The whole the Conjuring universe
Yeah, that's what I always think of.
is based on one of their cases. And there's a lot of memorable scenes in modern horror films like The Exorcist and The Others that kind of take from reports they've done.
Yeah.
So strap in. It's gonna get spooky.
Spooky.
It's gonna get a little spooky.
Spooky. How long is 5-month week in dog years? I'm going to say 27.
Hey, it is one of those things though. It's like it seems like your dog has lived a lifetime when you're at work and you come home and your dog's like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
oh my god, where have you been?
Oh my god.
oh my god."
You left me like half of my life.
It kind of makes sense though, because they don't live as long as we do.
Yeah.
All right, so probably one of the first case we're going to talk about, it's a very famous case, is the Amityville case. So in 1975 in Amityville, New York, George and Kathleen Lutz were hunting for a house. And I think they had a budget of like $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
And
like most of us, but nowadays you can't find that
right. But I may be hearing this wrong, but I think they found this house for $18,000.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, this is a steal. We have to get this place. But sooner or later, they found out why the mortgage was so low, or the price was so low. So a year early in 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr., or Butch as he's called, just snapped one night. And so on November 13th in 1964 at 3:15 a.m., Butch very calmly and systematically went to all the bedrooms and murdered his entire family, room to room. We have a picture of him. So he killed his father, his mother, 2 sisters, and 2 brothers, and they were shot with a .35 caliber rifle while they slept.
Sorry.
And
his face.
it's so funny.
Yeah, I killed my family.
What do you mean, you guys?
What do you mean?
So Butch claimed that he heard voices urging him to kill. And his lawyer, William Weber, tried for the insanity plea, but ultimately it didn't work. And Butch was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. So a month after he went away from
real
it.
quick,
Yeah.
what's up with the whole, like, we sentenced you to 6 lives, 10 lives,
Yeah, well,
100
I think what it
lives.
is the court is saying, if you only killed one of these people, we would put you away for the rest of your life. You know, so like this is how serious it is of what you did. Like, you did 1/6 of what you did is enough to put you away forever.
Right.
You know?
But it's like, I guess it's just, it feels like there's only, so much.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, like, with a judge, you're kind of supposed to be removed, and it's all supposed to be about, like, facts and numbers and
Yeah.
things. So it's like, no, it's like, yeah, I'm going to put you away for life, but I'm kind of supposed to take myself out of this.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I imagine that's why.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It seems like a little bit of like a show.
Right, exactly. It does kind of seem a
Yeah.
little like a show.
Like, I would think that it would be like, you're away for life, and half of that time you're in solitary confinement, and then this amount of time you're doing this.
Hard labor.
Hard labor.
Yeah.
And if you get sick, we're going to make you sicker because you fucking deserve it. Because you kill these people. Not like you got 12 years,
Yeah.
12 lifetimes, because you only have one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, one to spend.
I feel you on that.
Yeah. Anyway.
So a month after that, the Lutz's family, or the Lutzes, or the Lutz family, however you want to say it,
Lutz.
they moved in with their 3 kids. And the Lutz family, they weren't religious, but they kind of heard, like, this is some serious stuff went down here last year. They're like, maybe we should call a priest and have him come in and bless the place and say a prayer, and then we'll be good.
Right.
So Father Pecoraro came in and was blessing the house, and he went upstairs and was splashing holy water, and when he entered one of the rooms, he heard a voice saying, "Get out." And he was very much taken aback by it, so he closes the door, he goes downstairs, and he doesn't tell the family what happened. He just says, "Don't use that room as a bedroom, and you'll be fine."
Right.
But the place has been blessed. So, you know what they did? They used that room as a bedroom.
Yeah.
They didn't listen. They're just like, whatever, it's fine.
Here it's support what you love.
Support.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what your shirt says. Okay.
Yeah. I could put like secret messages behind here and be like, what?
Okay.
Sorry.
So obviously, if you've watched any horror film ever,
Yeah.
obviously you know that some weird stuff starts happening after they move in, and it was like the typical doors slamming, and I heard a funny noise, and I think I heard a footstep, and just little stuff that you dismiss right away.
Right.
And anyway, things just kind of kept getting a little weirder and weirder, and one day they said, like, they turned the heat up all the way, and it just wouldn't heat the house. And So they decided that they had a fireplace. They're like, maybe the heater's broken, but like it's really cold in here. So they used the fireplace, and George, the dad, said he kept seeing like faces in the fire. And their 5-year-old daughter, I think it's either Misty or Missy, I can't remember.
I think it's Missy.
Missy? Okay, we'll say Missy. She kept saying that she was being visited by this imaginary friend named Jody. And then they said after that it got weirder, and they were like noticing like green slime something coming out of the walls, and
Ectoplasm.
and it was in the keyholes too. There's like this green film over stuff.
They have kids.
Right? Yeah,
Just kidding.
Boogers.
Boogers
everywhere. 3 kids.
You have kids, you know.
And then they said the doors and windows, they'd find like one damaged, like it got slammed really hard or something, or a window got slammed shut and it was like cracked and things.
Kids.
And then one night, George said he saw Kathleen's face morph into what looked like an old witch, is what he, I guess, described.
Right.
And you can kind of see like the things that they report on, like it's like that's like in the others. It's like, I am your daughter, you know, like. And they said that they saw hoof prints in the snow leading into the house. And George said he would always be awakened at 3:15, and just by like an unsettling feeling, and that was the time that Butch started murdering his family. And then one night, George hears...
So he would wake up...
At 3:15.
3:15, which was the time...
Something would wake him up.
That the other dude that previously lived there, they got sentenced to 1 million lives in prison.
Yeah.
That made no sense.
Started murdering
his family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's the whole thing.
And then there was another night, apparently, that he heard this loud rumbling coming from his daughter's room, and he was trying to get up, but he felt like something was pushing on his chest, like keeping him in bed.
Yeah.
And then he also said that he saw his wife. He would wake up and he'd see his wife like levitating onto the bed. So they're geeked out. Obviously, this is 28 days, like not even a month, and like all this weird stuff is happening, and they're like, "Are you crazy? Am I crazy?
Right?
Like, should we not live here? Like this is really weird, right?
Yeah.
You know, green slime, levitating, hearing voices. Like we just need to get out of here.
Right.
Like so they move out, they leave all their stuff, and they just go stay with friends. But they're still responsible for the property. So they decide, I think they contacted the church again, and the church said, call Ed and Lorraine Warren, because they kind of investigate this stuff. So Lorraine, who was a clairvoyant, said that she went in and encountered Butch's spirit. And I don't know if she said too much about like how she was introduced, but like she felt that it was Butch and felt this overwhelming feeling of depression from Butch. And Ed, who was a demonologist, and he was actually like sanctioned by the church. He was the only person that was not a priest at the time that was sanctioned to be, or like given permission to be a demonologist, or however that works in the church.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a priest. Anyway, he said that he felt that there was a demon or demons in the house, and he explained in some interviews. He said that demons are attracted to tragedy, and they're like attracted to it like a moth to a light. He said, and they like feed off that energy, and that's why like you might have a ghost in the house that died, and there's pain and tragedy, and then the demons come as well. Is kind of how he explained it. So they took photos and they brought in a crew. And most things seemed totally normal about the house. But they did get one photo that they released from investigating this house. And you can see there's clearly someone there in the doorway.
Right.
And their eyes are glowing.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Lutzes moved out, and there weren't any further incidents after that. And they said, like, it was a fairly, like, you know, there's something here, what's going on, taking photos, everything seems kind of normal, and then there's this photo. And they kind of said like that photo very much. I don't have a picture of the family.
Right.
But that photo like kind of resembles Butch's youngest brother, who is like 9 years old.
Right.
And like that kind of looks like a 9-year-old boy.
Yeah.
You know, with like blonde, brown hair, white.
Right.
You know, 5'1", you know, whatever it was, like
Right,
whatever the
right,
kid
right.
was, you know, it's like yeah, that's kind of weird, dude. So the Amityville house still exists today, and it's considered like the most haunted place ever.
Yeah, it's like
It's-
if you look
it's
up,
like the most famous
just
haunted house.
type
ever.
it in,
Yeah.
like most haunted, it'll be
Yeah.
Amityville House.
Okay. So,
And there's a movie.
yeah.
Go check
so
it out.
like yeah, there's so much stuff going on with that. Like yeah, there's books and movies and there's so much stuff on that.
Yeah.
So anyway, another case that they did was the Annabelle case. So in 1970, there was a nursing student named Donna who got a Raggedy Ann doll from 1970. From that year, she got a gift from her mother. And I think I remember like there was one of these at my grandmother's house. Like
They were very
made a few-
popular.
They were like super popular.
Very popular.
Uh,
Is this a picture of the actual doll or no?
This is a picture of. We do have a picture of the actual doll, but this is like just it's a doll from 1970.
Okay.
This is what they look like when they came out of the store.
Not the actual doll.
Not the actual one, but it looked exactly like this because it was that model.
Right.
Donna, you know, like the doll, and she took it home. She had a roommate named Angie who was also a nursing student. So they just said, we're going to put the doll on the couch as a little decoration. It's a gift from my mom. And then they started noticing that the doll would seem to be left in like weird places. And neither her or her roommate remembered moving it because they're like, well, you know, I'm an adult now. I don't play with dolls. Like, this is a gift from my mom. It's just going to sit here on the couch.
Real quick,
Yeah.
Rachel here says that she still has hers and it's in her living room looking at her right now.
Oh, it's looking at you right now? Well, holy shit.
Well, listen to this.
All right, listen to this. You're going to be burying that thing in the backyard. So they noticed it would be like in a weird spot. And then they noticed it was in Donna's room with the door closed when they came home from work. And so she's asking Angie, she's like, did you move the Raggedy Ann doll in my room? She's like, no. And she's like, but you did pick it up to clean the other day. So maybe you just like had it with you and set it down, you know. They're like, okay. They're like, that's kind of weird though.
Yeah.
And it keeps happening, and they're like, something's going on. Like, there's only two of us living here, and Donna's boyfriend would come over, and so they asked Donna's boyfriend about it, Lou, and they're like, are you messing with the doll? And he's like, is that doll moving on its own? And they're like, we kind of think so. He's like, you need to get rid of that thing.
Yeah.
He's like, this does not sound like a good thing. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, I don't know what this is, but it's creepy. It's like I said, it just kind of stares at you, you know?
Right.
And
I mean, look at it.
like the way its eyes are set, it's like a painting that's always watching you. Like that's
Right.
how it's made, you know.
Yeah.
And so he's like, it's creepy. You just need to get rid of it.
Bury it in the backyard.
So then they start finding little pieces of parchment paper around the house, and it says "Help me" on it, written on it. And you know, Donna goes to Angie. She's like, "Did you buy parchment paper? Like, were you baking cookies or something?" She's like, "No." "Did you buy parchment paper?" She's like, well, "I never have time to bake anything. I'm in nursing school, you know."
Right.
And they're like, "Well, there's parchment paper in here, and that no one brought into the house, and it says "Help me" on it, and like little kids' handwriting." And they're like, "This is weird." And then, like a week after that, the doll has moved into the corner, and it's got this like red stuff on its hands.
Yeah.
And they said it wasn't blood, but it's like blood. It's like corn syrup with dye in it or something. It's like blood, but they figured it wasn't blood.
Right.
And then it just seemed to like go away on its own. Like a couple hours later, they go back. They're like, "Hey, like what is that? Let's go look at that again." They're like, "It's gone." They're like, "You saw it had blood on its hands, right?"
Right.
And they're like, "Yeah." They're like, "What's going on?" So Lou's freaking out now, like the boyfriend that comes over, and he's like, "You need to get rid of that thing. That thing is creepy." And they're like, "No, it's cute. It's fine." They're like, "There's obviously an explanation for it." And so Lou stays over one night with Donna in her room, and he hears like skittering around on the floor, and he's like, "What is that?" You know, and kind of like leans up, and then feels something start crawling up on the bed. and then sees the little Raggedy Ann doll like climbing on top of his legs and moving up towards his face. And he's like, what's going on? And then like he goes to like yell for Donna to be like, do you see this? What's going on? And it jumps on him and starts choking him until he passes out.
Right.
And so he wakes up and he goes to the bathroom, he splashes water on his face, and he's like, that must have just been a really weird nightmare. That's the only explanation for that, because that was really weird and creepy. And he's like, maybe I've just been so creeped out by it.
And she
I
never
don't
woke
know.
up.
Yeah, she never woke up. And he's like, I think I had a weird dream. He's like, but it felt real.
Right.
You know, I don't, the only logical explanation is that it's a dream and this did not really happen, but like my body's telling me that really happened.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So the girls go, let's contact like a medium, because it seems like we have a possessed doll, you know? So they, I don't think they contact the Warrens. They contacted someone else. And they found out through this medium that there was a girl named Annabelle Higgins that was living inside this doll. And they later found out that before the apartment was built, there was a little girl that was 7 years old that was found on, like, a dead body that was found on the property.
How did they find out it was Annabelle in the doll?
Because the medium said...
The medium
talked
there's
to
a lady-
whoever the spirit is. There's a little girl that's about 7 years old.
named
She lives in
Annabelle.
Annabelle.
Okay.
And the medium said to Donna and Angie that the little girl is asking for permission to stay in the doll and live with you because you're nurses and you seem like nice people and you can take care of her.
Right.
And she said, like, she's been acting up a little bit, but she was trying to get your attention. She finally got your attention. She likes you guys.
Right.
So the two women go, that's cute, okay. So they go to Lou and they explain what happened, and Lou's like, no, you get rid of that doll now.
No.
This is a bad idea.
Right,
Like, you
right.
invited this thing to live here with us, you know?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's gonna be fine. The medium said it's this little girl and she's just playing pranks and stuff, but she feels safe here and we want to give her a home. And so over the next weeks, like, more strange incidents occur where the doll's, like, you know, in a different spot or whatever. Like, the same stuff kind of keeps happening, but they go like, oh, okay, it's Annabelle. And Annabelle lives in the doll and it's
Right.
okay, you know? So they just kind of accept that, like, there's this ghost living with them and it's cool. But then...
Isn't it weird that the doll was Raggedy Ann?
Right. It is a little weird.
Raggedy. I like how sassy she looks. Look at
She
that
does look
stuff.
real sassy. I'm gonna stay here.
Yeah. I'll choke a bit.
So, anyway, and then, like, they keep getting the parchment paper notes. And some of them are innocent, some of them still say, help me. But then, like, Lou's like, I've had enough of this. Like, this is bullshit. This doll cannot be here. And then, like, they start finding little pieces of paper that say, help Lou.
Right.
And then, like, so Lou's, like, getting more and more creeped out about this. The girls go for, like, a girls' trip. And they get Lou's house sit. And maybe he had been, like, moved in by the time, I'm not sure. But he was there. And, like, he goes and sees that Annabelle is laying, like, face down on the floor, like, right by the couch. And he goes to pick her up. And he's like, all right, I'll just put this doll back on the couch. And, like, reaches down and then just feels, like, this excruciating pain in his chest as soon as he touches the doll. And he grabs his chest and he looks and he sees, like, blood pooling up on, like, his shirt
Yeah,
that he's
coming
wearing,
through.
you know?
Right.
And he's like, what's going on? So he lifts up his shirt and, like, there are scratches all throughout his chest in the shape of 666 on his chest. And he's like, he's freaking out. And so he's, like, gonna tell them, like, obviously, like, they're away on a trip, and he's like, I guess I'll tell them what happened when I get back. And, like, as soon as they get back, they disappear. And, like, so he's like, the doll scratched the mark of the beast in my chest and I was bleeding, and
Right.
looking, and it's not there.
Right. Look, no.
So Donna and Angie are like, all right, like, we all know something's going on, and I don't know if they believed Lou or not, but they're like, we need to call someone else to come in. So they decide to reach out to the church, and that's when they send Ed and Lorraine over. So Ed comes in and looks at the doll, and he's like, this doll is lying to you. He's like, this doll is not a little girl. There's a demon in it, and it's lying to you. And now, because it's been formally invited to live with you, which is what demons need.
They're like vampires.
Like, yeah, but they need you to give them permission. He's like, they're going to look, he's like, it's looking for a human host. And that's what's going on. And Ed said, I think it's best if I take the doll with me and we put it somewhere safe, away, lock it up, do something with it, but it shouldn't stay here with y'all because it's going to do something really bad. So he said, I'm going to take it with me. He's like, he tells Lorraine, he said, I'm going to take it away. I'm going to avoid the freeway. And she goes, yeah, that's a really good idea, because they figured the doll might protest in some way, and they didn't want to be in a place where like they could get into a car accident with lots of traffic or something. Right. So he takes back roads back to their place, and he said several times like the brakes would feel really spongy, and then like the car would jerk off the road, and he had to like hold on real tight and get home. And he said he threw holy water on the doll, and then it stopped, and then he finally got home. And while Ed and Lorraine had it, they said they were watching it and monitoring it, and they said that it had like similar experiences where like the doll would like be in some other room, or it would move from where they put it. And Ed said he even saw it like levitate. And so like Ed and Lorraine were very involved with the church. So Ed called the priest over. He said, I need you to come look at this doll because these people saw it doing some weird stuff, and I've seen it doing some weird stuff, and I'm pretty sure like he wasn't really into ghosts. He was a demonologist. He's like, I'm pretty sure that's what this is. Right. And the priest comes in and goes, it's totally possible that a demon's possessing this doll. And he's like, it's just a doll. It has no power over us or people that believe in God or anything like that. Right, it's literally
this little doll thing. Especially coming in from an outside perspective. You're like, it's just a doll.
So the priest looks at it and he goes, you're just a doll. You can't hurt anybody. And like Ed kind of gets some peace. He's like, okay, yeah, like we'll put this away or something, and then the priest is driving home and dies in a car accident that same day.
It's like you've invented some new source of free energy.
So Ed, they have it on display in their house actually still, or before they died. I think they died in like the early 2000s. But they had it on display in their house, and in a glass case that said positively "Do not open." So that's the doll.
Do not open it.
Annabelle. Yeah. And they felt that like that would.
That one's more like gangster looking.
That would keep it in there.
It's like,
yeah.
Shit.
It's like, I did it. So that's the story of Annabelle, right? So obviously it's like there's a lot of books and movies that kind of like came from that experience, like Chucky and
like the movie Annabelle.
And the movie Annabelle. What was it? Dead Silent was another one. Like. Lots of stuff, and that's kind of where it comes from.
Sherry here says, I found one at an antique store. I put it with my other weird items. Yeah, they look so weird. Like they're creepy on their own. Like there doesn't need to be a story. Just look at it. Rachel here says, I want Kyle in a scary movie with his reactions and Jay's. Well, what's our scary face?
Oh, like we need to watch scary, like do reaction videos?
No, like a scary movie.
A scary movie. Like be in the movie. Yeah.
They're coming to get us. And then we're like,
Okay. So the next case, the movie The Conjuring. The movie The Conjuring was released in I think it's 2013, and it was very critically acclaimed. I don't know how everyone feels. Let us know how you feel about the movie Conjuring. But there were so many people that were like, this is the best, scariest horror film ever.
Right.
And I remember hearing my friends tell me that. I remember reading about it. And I remember I watched it after everyone hyped it up, and I think it lived up to the hype. It's a really good movie.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's been a while.
I don't know if it's the best horror movie ever, but it got really good press.
Yeah.
And one of the things they said, it was it just seemed like a real story.
Right.
And that's because it was a real story. Like, this was like a case that Ed and Lorraine did, and Ed and Lorraine are like portrayed in the movie as well. So in January 1971, the Perrin family moved to a farmhouse in Rhode Island. And almost immediately, the Perrins and their daughters started seeing weird stuff in the house. So, like how most of these stories go, everything's just kind of unnoticeable. Like Carolyn, the mom, would be, sweeping up the kitchen and put the broom down somewhere, and she knows she put it down there, and then it ended up over there. And
happens to me all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Like something you'd be like, no, it's nothing. I do that all. Exactly.
Sure,
that happens all the time.
So give us some stuff. Like what's some real funky stuff?
So, and then noises, mumblings, footsteps.
Yeah.
Oh, is there something going on? Who is that? Who's home? Oh, the kid's right over there. What was that? Maybe it was a squirrel.
Right.
All stuff
okay,
like
so like some
typical regular stuff.
Okay.
But then one day, Carolyn was mopping the kitchen, and she had started from the door and went to the wall, went in a certain direction, and knows that she cleaned everything behind her.
So she went from the window to the wall?
From the window to the wall.
Okay.
Oh, ski. Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she knows she's cleaned everything behind her, so she's cleaning, and then she turns around, she's like, I'm done. Mop the whole kitchen, turns around, and there's muddy footprints, behind her.
Right.
And so that's weird. That's a little more than where did I put my broom?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's weird.
Oh, yeah.
So she's checking her shoes, first, and her shoes are clean. So, and then the girls said that they saw these spirit things that seemed like they were mad. And they told their mom that. And she said, well, did they say anything to you? And she said, no, it's like they don't even know we're here. They're just mad at each other.
Right.
And then Cindy, the 8-year-old girl, said that she kept hearing this voice say, there are 7 dead soldiers in the walls. And she didn't know if something was telling her that or if she was just overhearing it. But she just heard that there are 7 dead soldiers in the walls. And then Carolyn said that she started seeing something, as her kids are saying, hey, I saw these angry spirits and they're yelling at each other. And I heard this guy say this. And then she saw this dude leaned up in her kitchen with what she described as old-timey clothes. And this house was actually very, very old. So I guess that kind of made sense. It's there's an old-timey person in there because the house is really old and that's the previous owner or whatever it was.
Right.
So they said, but most of the time these ghosts would show up and they were totally unaware that they were there too. But then after a while, they would notice these 2 ghosts would be arguing with each other, and then they'd be like, "What was that?" And they're looking around and they're watching it happen.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, one of the ghosts goes, "Oh, look!" and is pointing directly at Cindy, and then they just vanish.
Right.
So it's the ghosts are being haunted by people, and the people are being haunted by ghosts.
Right.
Something's going on,
right.
Something weird. And so Carolyn's I need to do some research into this house and find out what's going on here.
Right.
And so she found out it was in the Arnold family for generations, and had found out that 8 people had died on the property.
Right.
And some of them had died violently on the property, and some of them were little children that had died on the property. But it was because it was been in this family for generations and generations. So they found out that when they looked into who was in the house, there was this woman named Bathsheba Sherman that lived in the house. And Carolyn kind of found out that maybe some of
Real quick, hold on. Bathsheba?
Yeah, who names their kid Bathsheba?
Bathsheba.
Wasn't that the woman that seduced the king of Israel or something like that?
It could
and
be.
He cheated on his wife with her.
I would believe that was.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I don't think the historical Bathsheba was a bad person, but it was just kind of not a story you'd be oh, I'm gonna name a kid that, because it was at least unfortunate for her, whatever happened. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's ugh, man, everybody has those names that hit every generation where every kid's named Jaden. you know,
Jaden or Braden or Caden or Layden or Aiden.
Like, how many people? Yeah, you know a lot of people with those names. But Bathsheba, imagine like that was that like a popular name?
I don't know. I know it's an ancient name.
Yeah,
it's an ancient name, but I don't know, man. I feel like if you threw a rock into a crowd, you wouldn't hit Bathsheba.
You wouldn't.
You know what I
mean? No. I think you'd go your whole life and not meet somebody named Bathsheba. Anyway, continue.
So we found out that there's a woman that lived in a house, and apparently
it's such a beautiful name. I'm sorry.
my grandma's named Bathsheba. It probably means something really beautiful.
Right, yeah.
Something like the endless flower or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. The blossom of my love, Bathsheba.
So anyway, and apparently she had a reputation for beating and starving the hired help because her husband, Judson, worked the farm and she was in charge of taking care of the house, and I guess they were pretty well off, and I don't know if they were like enslaved people or if it was after that time or whatever it was, but they had help, and she just like gave them hell all the time and was rude and mean and beat them and starved them, and she was like known as like the town nasty lady, you know what I mean? And she had 3 children that all died while they were very young, and the town was like, that's really unfortunate, and it was like, but she's so mean and evil, like maybe she killed them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that was like a thought in like a lot of people's minds. They just didn't say it. You know? So then, I want to know, who is in like the desperate enough situation where they needed this woman to watch their baby. You know what I mean? We're like, I can't find a babysitter, honey. Well, who do we get? Right. Well, Bathsheba's available. And they're like, oh, didn't she kill like 3 of her kids? No, she didn't do that. You know, she's just really mean.
Can we read what's on the tombstone? Is that a thing?
Bathsheba, Sherman, it's got dates on it.
Say Tuesday?
That's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, I can't read that. Sorry. I got like distracted.
But like that's her gravestone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sorry, everybody.
So, anyway, she was labeled a witch in the town because this infant that she was babysitting for mysteriously died. And, you know, they took the baby and
that's what witches do.
Did like an autopsy. Yeah, exactly, right?
They kill babies. Yeah.
But they found out that the cause of death was actually a stab wound to the skull with a sewing needle. And they didn't do anything to Bathsheba. And a lot of people suspect it's because they were like so afraid of her.
Right.
So they just kind of went, it was just this tragic infant death of being stabbed in the head with a sewing needle while Bathsheba was taking care of it. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, what?
Right.
You know?
Real quick, Steve here says, I know 6 people that know 5 people that heard of a guy that goes to a dentist with a daughter named Bathsheba.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. They're out there.
So the parents said, after they found all this out, they said at 5:15 every morning they would be awoken by something and they would smell rotting flesh. And everybody in the house smelled it. Like they all went, they were like, hey, something's going on. And they'd all be like, what's that smell? Like everybody in the house
that's a smell you
it.
cannot, like you can't confuse that.
Yeah.
You know what that smells like.
And then they said like the heat would stop working intermittently. But like there wouldn't be anything intermittently. It would kind of stop working and then it would work again.
Yeah. Intermittently.
So like, and they're like, that's weird. And they go and check it out and there's nothing wrong with it. It just would stop working sometimes. And one night, apparently, Roger Perrin's bed was lifted off of the ground and then just slammed down. Like lifted up and then just let go of. And Carolyn started hearing voices telling her, you need to kill your children just like I did. And so they're all freaking out. They're like, something's going on. This is really weird. Right. We need to call somebody. And so they end up like calling Ed and Lorraine. And they called them for help. And Ed and Lorraine came in and they said, we need to perform a seance. That's what we need to do.
Yeah. Like in Beetlejuice.
And so, and Roger's like, no, the fuck you're not. You know what I mean? He's like, we just need to like find out what's here and get out. I don't know like what he thought. He like thought a seance was evil or something. Like just he was like, no, you're not doing that.
Right.
And the kids and mom is all like, nope, we just need to do what Ed and Lorraine said because they do this. You know what I mean? They're sanctioned by the church. They know what they're doing, whatever they say to do. So he's like in the other room, like, oh, this is horse crap. I don't
Like
want to do
prepare
this,
the shrimp cocktails,
You know.
sit around the table, and you start hearing "Deal,
So
deal."
in an interview later, he said he told them not to do it and left the room, and he's like, and they just did it anyway. And he said he was like kind of mad about it.
Yeah.
He said so 3 to 5 minutes into it, his wife just starts having convulsions and starts contorting, and he actually says extorting in the interview, but I think he just misspoke and meant contorting.
Right. Intermittently.
So he said it looked like someone was squeezing her, and he said she looked like she was completely out of this world, is what his words were.
Yes.
And at this point, like, Roger has had enough, so he like grabs his wife and he's like, snap out of it, and he punches Ed in the mouth, and he's like, you get out of my house, like, what are you doing? You know, you're doing this to my wife. This is weird. I don't want this in the house.
Right.
So he punches Ed in the mouth, and Ed's like, oh, okay, let's leave. Sorry, we were just here to try to help you, dude.
Right.
You know, so they leave, and when they left, all the haunting stopped. Like, they never had another instance, anything weird happen ever again.
Because she was scared to tell anybody, because he showed her that he's willing to throw a punch or two.
Right, yeah. They're like, oh, man, this guy's laying down the law.
Yeah.
Ghosts better get out of here.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the wife would be like, I don't want to get beat. You know? I'm really thinking that like it was like they weren't really convulsions. They were trying to dance to that, like, Tally Me Banana song.
Oh, right.
That's
like, they're
all
like,
it
girl,
is.
you need to move like this.
Yeah.
And he's all like, what? No dancing. Footloose. Bam.
Yeah, called Tally Man, Tally Me Banana. And that's what was going on. And he's like freaking out. Like, I hate that kind of music. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. So,
Next one.
We got a couple more to go through. So the Enfield poltergeist. This was in England, I believe. So there's I hope I say Hodgson.
Hodgson.
Hogsden, not Hogsden, Hodgson.
Hodgson.
Peggy Hodgson.
Hodgson.
She put her kids to bed one night, and then she heard this chair dragging on the floor. And she goes into her kid's bedroom and is like, I put you kids to bed, you don't need to be playing with the furniture. And, like, the kids are under their blankets, like, just trembling.
Right.
And she sees the chair move on its own, like 1.5 feet, like a noticeable amount, not just like a little rocking, like 1.5 feet.
Yeah.
And so she tells the kids to be quiet. She turns off the lights, and she hears like scratching, and she turns them back on, and then she sees the dresser just move to the side. And she tries to put the dresser back where it goes, and it's like there's something pushing up against it, and she can't move it back. So she calls the neighbors, and she's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, there's a ghost in here. What's going on? She's like, I can't move the dresser back, and they're all pushing on it too, and they can't get it to move back. And then the neighbors, they like start seeing the chair start wobbling. And again, they're all like, do you see this? I see this too, right? We're all saying here, right?
Right.
Okay. And they're like, let's call the police, you know? Right. So they call the police, and the police are like, what do you want us to do? You know, like basically it's like the cops show up and they're like, they came in and investigated it. And apparently in the police report, they actually said that they saw the chair move 3 feet. It's like in the police report. You know what I mean? So it's like the neighbors, they're seeing stuff, she's seeing stuff, the kids seeing stuff, the police that they call see stuff, and they're like, okay, we saw this, it's in our report, you're not crazy, but like until the ghost commits a crime that we can put them in jail for, basically, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, we don't know what to do, like, you called the wrong people.
Yeah.
So weird stuff keeps happening in the house, and Peggy and the kids, they all just decide they're all just going to sleep in the same room. And that just kind of seemed to make things worse. And apparently, Janet, the little daughter, would have the voice of this weird old man come out of her and say like weird stuff. But her lips weren't moving. It was just like the sound was coming from her. And there's interviews of it because people were like, we don't know what's going on. And there's films of her of it actually happening. And it's the closest thing I can describe it to is like the red rum.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it sounds like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But she's sitting there and like,
well, I remember like hearing one of the interviews, and it's like that would hurt my. They're trying to be like that would hurt my voice if I talked like that for a while. And
Right.
she'd be, oh my god, yeah. You know, it's like, whoa. It's bizarre stuff.
So obviously they're like, you need to call someone. So you know who they call?
Ghostbusters.
No.
No.
Who do they call? That's right, the media.
The media.
They call the media.
The media.
They call the media. They don't call a paranormal investigator or anything. They just like let the newspaper knows that there's something going on.
Right.
So soon, all of these like amateur paranormal investigators just start like showing up at their house. They're like, we could figure it out.
Right.
And so anyway, they ended up like kind of getting a little bit of evidence for it. So they put a motion controlled camera in Janet's room. And the camera caught her like getting thrown out of her bed, and we have a picture of it.
Yeah.
And so that was like kind of the evidence that they gathered that like something was weird, you know, like caught something on camera.
Now let's take just a quick second because you know we are going a little late tonight, but what are those posters? Anybody?
Oh yeah,
know
tell us what those posters are.
Those are.
We'll keep talking about
We'll keep
it.
talking, but I want to know if you guys know what those are. Like, who are those dudes?
So several interviews are conducted by like just average people trying to figure it out. There was even some psychologists that interviewed her, and they were like, "We don't think your kid's crazy. We think there's something really weird going on. We don't know what it is."
Right.
So they're all like, "Okay, this is kind of validated in a way." So by 1979, Ed and Lorraine Warren had heard of this case, and by this time they were pretty well known. And they would also they would go and look for cases to investigate. So they offered to come and investigate. So they flew to London.
Right.
And Ed was like suspecting demon possession in Janet. But Ed was a demonologist. You know,
Right,
so
right.
Obviously, you know, that's kind of his go-to.
Starsky and Hutch.
But he said he thought there was like a demon or an evil spirit inside her. So he talked to Janet, and the evil spirit said that his name was Bill, and he had died in the house of a brain hemorrhage and sat down in a chair and died.
Right.
And so they go and do some investigating, and they find out that there, in fact, was a man named Bill that lived in the house that was found dead in his chair with a brain hemorrhage. And his son actually confirmed this, and the hospital actually confirmed this. And they're like, there's no way Janet could have known about this story.
Right.
Because it wasn't it wasn't in the obituary even if she went to the library and found old newspapers or something. You know what I mean? She wouldn't have known those details. And the son confirmed it. And so in addition to all this, the Hodgkin family there were about 30 people from the neighborhood, people that came over that saw chairs move, and they felt like a weird chill in the air, and heard murmurings. They said someone saw a match get lit on its own, just sitting on the table.
Right.
So there's all these people.
Yeah.
That are yeah, there's something weird going on. I don't know what this is, and then it just stops. After about 18 months of just whatever this thing was, just torturing this family, it just leaves and it's gone.
Right.
So, next case, Snedeker case.
God, we're going through so many cases. We're already at 8 o'clock, Kyle.
I know. I think this is the last one actually, and then we have some more stuff.
We have some
other stuff to talk about.
Final
This is
final thoughts.
This is the last case we'll talk about tonight. All right.
Yeah.
So, in 1986, Carmen and Alan Snedeker, and I remember typing this, it would always autocorrect to sneaker, but it's Snedeker. It's Snedeker.
Oh, by the way, Steve says that the posters were Starsky and Hutch.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
They look familiar, but it's weird those times. You have these pictures of just this man. You know,
Yeah,
you used to nowadays, it's one of the Backstreet Boys. Not nowadays. That's probably back.
No, that was 30 years ago, Jay.
I don't know who. I don't know who it would be now. But it's not.
I think
Grizzly Man.
that is a weird thing. I know, like, when I got posters, it was like they were a lot like art based. If it was photography, it was of a band, and then there was stuff going on. It wasn't just like the picture of the person.
Remember, like, horror flicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had like or scenes
Movie
or
posters,
something.
yeah.
But that is that's a popular thing. Where it's just like, no, I really like that actor, or I really like that singer, and I just want a picture of them in my room. And cool.
I'm gonna buy you a poster of Morgan Freeman and frame it up. Be like, here you go. All right.
So anyway, they moved to Connecticut, and the reason why they moved to Connecticut from upstate New York is because their son Philip had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the hospital that they were treating him at was in Connecticut. So they found a house. They rented a house. This house.
This one right there.
It's
It's a beautiful house.
Yeah, right by the hospital.
Yeah.
With their 4 kids, and they also had 2 nieces that lived with them. So 6 kids. And so they get in the house. The house is pretty big, but he goes, there's a whole basement in here. We could renovate the basement and make some extra bedrooms. And so he's like, and the landlord was like, yeah, you want to fix it up for me? Absolutely. You do your thing. I'll knock some off the rent. You know what I mean? And so he's going down there and making renovations, fixing stuff. And then he sees this weird piece of equipment that's got like a pump on it and like weird tubes coming out of it. And he's like, honey, come and look at this. What is this? And she's like, that's embalming equipment. And he's like, oh, okay. So they go to the landlord and they're like, why is there embalming equipment in our house? And they find like more stuff too as they're like cleaning stuff out.
Coffins.
And then he was like,
knives.
well, before you lived here, this was called the Hallahan Funeral Home.
I guess this is before you had to disclose all that.
Yeah, and it was, a funeral home for about like 30 or 40 years.
Right.
And they're like, and you didn't tell us this? They're like, isn't that kind of weird? Don't you think like someone would want to know? I mean, like, I guess it's fine because we already moved in, dude.
It's strange it doesn't really look like a funeral home.
Yeah, but it was, like...
Homie.
So that's why the rent was so low, because no one wanted to rent a funeral home, and the landlord's like, I just won't tell anybody.
Right.
But they found out anyway. So then they find that out, and Philip starts seeing ghosts, and not just ghosts walking around, but like apparitions of like dead bodies stacked in the corner.
Right.
And stuff, and like just like really horrifying stuff for
After
a kid,
finding out.
for a kid to see.
Is this true, right? After finding out?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Philip was so terrified of the house, he was like, they'd go in for cancer treatments, and he's like, I just want to stay here in the hospital, Mom. Please, can we just stay here? And they're like, no, you need to come home. But he was like terrified because he kept seeing weird stuff. And then they said the house began to smell of like feces and rotting flesh and like probably like how the embalming room smells, They said light bulbs would unscrew, but they like off of their sockets, but they would still work even though they shouldn't because they weren't making contact. And then they said the spirits started becoming physically violent, and Carmen felt hands grabbing her while she would sleep. And she even said that one of the ghosts, got into bed with her.
Sure, right.
Did that. And then
I've seen in Ghostbusters.
And then Alan said, and then it got in the bed with me, and it did stuff to me too.
Right. Right.
So they got like raped by ghosts, is what they're saying.
Yeah.
So the family reaches out to.
I think the official term is spectral molestation.
Spectral molestation? Okay,
Yeah.
sure, maybe.
Yeah. It's possible.
Anyway, they call Ed and Lorraine, and Ed and Lorraine spend 9 weeks investigating, and they basically verify everything that they said. They're like, yep, there's ghosts in there, and we're seeing like dead bodies, and it's very, very creepy. And they said that like the crew that they brought in would feel like them like getting like pushed, or like getting grabbed at.
Mm-hmm.
So Ed spent some time in there and says that I guess he like did some investigating, and he found out that the mortician was a necrophiliac. And he believed that he was like possessed by a demon that like made him desire sleeping with the dead.
It's always the demons with this
Yeah,
dude.
right. Exactly. Well, he's a demonologist. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
What was that one? This is like a famous quote. It was like, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a race war.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's like you're looking for demons all the time, you find them.
Yeah.
So he decided to perform an exorcism on the house. And after the exorcism, the Snedekers moved out. But the Warrens, I guess, stayed behind to investigate. And they brought in a guy named Ray Garden, who they're like, we want you to document what we find. We want you to go interview the family and just document it. And so he ended up releasing a book called In a Dark Place, which was converted to a film called The Haunting in Connecticut, which came out in 2009.
Right.
Which is I don't know if I've seen it, but I think I've heard of that movie at least. No one has reported anything since, but they're sure to tell the renters that like this used to be a funeral home back in the day. Like so
this was a thing.
Lesson learned.
Yeah.
So
that's our story.
Yeah.
Right.
That's our story.
Those are our stories. Before we get into our wrap-ups, real quick, Sherry says here, I have a Roshambeaux poster hanging in my dining room. Aww.
Oh, cool.
And then Steve here says, we have Roshambeaux posters in various places. I remember you telling us about that. You open up a cabinet. You know, what I really want is I need a poster of like all of you guys so I can hang that up.
We need to do that. We need to start doing that. We need to make like a collage at shows.
Yeah.
And like
that way I can hang
have
that
a little
up.
thing, and yeah, like hang them up like old school.
Yeah, so every time I look at it, remember all you guys and all the cool stuff we've done and talked about. Anyway, before we get into our final thoughts, let us know what you guys think about these stories. But before then, we want to remind everybody we got merch over there on storefrontier.com/Roshambeaux. We got all kinds of sizes, cool stuff, hoodies. While it's still cold, you still got to stay warm.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got t-shirts over there too, long sleeves. We've got baseball bats with signatures of Babe Ruth. Go check them out.
Baseball bats with signatures of Babe Ruth.
Go check it out.
We might be out of those. You might need to go check.
You might
need to go check.
You really might need to go check.
Maybe there's one left.
There's probably at least one.
Yeah.
So if you hurry up now and hit that buy button.
Oh, someone put it in their cart. Hurry,
get it. But yeah, go check that stuff out because it really helps us out, man. You know.
Okay.
That's the whole thing. So, our final thoughts.
You need...
Let's say some final thoughts, and then we'll give our personal final thoughts. Let's go with that. Nancy says, that is just weird.
It is weird.
It is weird.
I found some stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you did too.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to just get into that real quick?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, okay. So, Ed and Lorraine, they're like the most famous, most successful paranormal investigators. They've contributed to like 30 books. There's all these movies. The whole Conjuring universe is worth $2 billion.
Right.
And it's about them. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's like, they're like...
Well, think about all, like, you start naming off, like, horror flicks. You know, Annabelle, The Conjuring. You're starting...
Yeah.
You're going, okay, that's Ed and Lorraine.
The Shining's kind of like got some stuff in there
yeah,
too. You know,
they
like,
take pieces from those stories because they are terrifying. If you, especially when you dig in deep, and it's not just us trying to like wrap it up the best we can and say it the way we can. Like there's a lot of dark
really,
details
like,
to
scary.
these stories,
Yeah.
and the way they can be twisted and everything can be very scary.
However, there are some skeptics, and so a lot of people are saying they're just exaggerating about stuff. But there's some people that are like, these people are frauds. They're total frauds.
Right.
And we kind of want to know what y'all think. Ed and Lorraine, they met when they were teenagers at a local movie theater, and they both started like talking about paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
And Ed said that he thought he grew up in a house that was haunted, and she was like, "Well, I'm a clairvoyant," and they're like, "Well, do you want to go on another date?" And then they got married when they were 19.
Right.
Because they're both super into it. So what they would do is they were both artists actually, and apparently like really good visual artists as well. And they would paint. So they would go to people's houses and sit out in front, and like if they thought a place was haunted, they would go and paint the house, and then they would knock on the door and they would be like, "Hey, do you want to buy this? We just painted your house."
Yeah.
And like, dude, imagine that. Imagine someone just coming and sitting in front of your house.
Right.
Painting it.
Short story.
And it's taken
I watched this
taken
thing.
hours to do.
I watched this thing about people like talking about finances to make money, blah blah blah, and they like told this artist girl that was just a waitress, but she was like wanting to get back into like getting some side gigs and stuff to make some money. And they were like, "Why don't you go to the park and draw people's dogs, and then give them that and say, and right on the back, I also am a dog sitter."
Uh-huh.
The same kind of like that's a hard
Does
sell.
that sound like a good idea to you?
I
Like,
don't
would
know.
you be like, yeah, come and sit my dog, weird lady?
That just drew this thing of my dog while I was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I have a little bit more faith. I think it's kind of it's definitely a very cute idea.
It is a cute idea.
Yeah.
And
I wish that the world was like that.
Yeah,
where,
so-
like, that wasn't weird.
so anyway, it wasn't very lucrative.
Right,
They didn't
yeah.
sell a lot of those paintings.
No.
They did sell some of them, though.
Sure.
So Ed got a job as a bus driver, and so they're like in between. They're like, let's do the art thing on the side, and they're both really into paranormal stuff, and they're like, we can just kind of investigate stuff, and we'll just kind of build as we go. And they started having like a little bit of success where they're like, oh, you need to call Ed and Lorraine because they're really into that. You know,
Right.
they go and investigate it.
right.
But their big break was when they invested the Amityville case.
Yeah.
Now, so they brought in a film crew to the to the Amityville place, and like they didn't really catch anything, and they were like, you know, I think they like brought in recording stuff, and they'd be like, oh, we heard something, and we're like, oh no, that's Tom, going "Whoo," to like to
Right.
Bill, you know what I mean, like, because they were like having a good time, and so they're like, man, we're not getting anything, and then they're like, well, we have that one photo that we got,
Right.
and you can pull that photo back
Let me
up.
pull that back up.
So like the ghost, so like the one that they released, we're like, this is, so the one of the boy that looks a lot like the little boy
Right.
that died the year before. That's not a little boy, and it's not a ghost. It's actually what was the guy's name? It's Paul. Paul Bartz was his name, and he was on the film crew. And someone just like snapped photo as he was like looking around the corner,
Right.
and the light coming from his eyes is the flash on his glasses. And if you look really close, like the guy is wearing
see it.
glasses.
Yeah.
So he's a boyish looking man, but it's like that was Paul, and he's on the film crew.
Right.
But so when they released it, like everyone said, like that's such a creepy photo, and they went, yeah.
And they didn't
all,
say that,
and
yeah.
that's all they said. And everybody else was like, they caught this ghost. And the Lutzes, they did call Father Pecoraro to come in,
Father Pecker.
but he said, "You have a lovely home. Be blessed."
Yeah.
And like he never said that he, you know, sprayed holy water on this thing and then heard this voice get out and don't go in that room. He never said that. He just said like, yeah, I'll come bless your house, sure. And it was just a normal day. And the Lutzes could not have seen hoof prints because while they were there, it didn't snow that year. So
Right.
when they were like, we saw hoof prints in the snow, there wasn't any snow. And then the damage on all the doors, the landlord said when they moved, they said all the doors were fine, windows were fine, nothing was damaged. House is actually in great shape when the Lutzes left. So you kind of got to go like, well, where does the story come from then? Because like there's a huge ass story around this. You know,
Sure.
It's the Amityville horror, you know?
Right.
So where it actually comes from is William Weber, remember the lawyer for Butch? He was working on a book deal because he wanted to paint this place as like, this is a very scary place where there was a murder happening, and I'm going to bring the Lutzes in because they actually lived there. And he's like, so I'm going to write this book, and it's going to be this scary book, and I want you guys to tell me your story, and we'll kind of, you know, paint this picture. And so they come up with this story, and then they're drinking wine, and they're like, oh, put this in there because that'll be scary. And put this in there, and like, let's make it, you know, let's make it a thing.
Right.
And so what's the funny thing is the lawyer offered them like a kind of a small cut of the book, and then they went, you know what, you can't use any of our stuff. And then they went and they took it to a guy named Jay Anson, who offered them a 50-50 split. And the book sold 6 million copies. And then like movie deals started coming in, and because they owned 50% of that story, like
Right.
they got 50% of those deals as well. So they kind of just decided that it was best to just stick to the story that they had. And like when they would do interviews, they're like, yeah. They're like, you know that book? Yeah, it's that.
Right.
What's in the book? Yeah, it's that.
And that's not to say that they didn't.
It's-
People didn't actually get killed in the house. It was
Yes,
people
people
came
were
in
killed in the
after,
house.
Just to be clear.
Yes,
You
people
know.
were killed in the house.
Yeah.
That did happen. But
Yeah.
the stories of all the ghosts, like, admittedly, or it's been proven that they like kind of added those things in for a
Yeah.
book.
Fudged it up.
Yeah. So probably not haunted. Could be haunted, but it seems like
I have some thoughts afterwards.
seems like there's a lot of money in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all right.
Yeah.
So the Annabelle case. What's weird about the Annabelle case is it's basically it's almost a verbatim story of a Twilight Zone episode called The Living Doll, which aired in 1963. This is like 7 years before the Annabelle case. And the plot is like there's this daughter that receives a doll, and it's actually a stepfather that thinks it's creepy. It's like, no, we gotta get rid of it. And then the doll turns on him and comes for him, and it's this really scary episode, and it's like one of the best episodes of Twilight Zone.
Right.
And you know the doll eventually gets its revenge, and so like if that's the one thing where it's like, oh, it's basically the same story, but Ed and Lorraine actually co-opted that story with the Twilight Zone. And you know what the mother's name is on that episode?
Let me guess.
Yeah, it's Annabelle.
Annabelle. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
the whole thing.
there's a lot of coincidences going on there to have it be like they made up this story, because they made up this story for a TV show and then put it in real life over here.
Yeah.
So there's that. So obviously it
That
makes you kind of skeptical.
Right.
What's
But
going
that doesn't mean that it's not a creepy story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that there's not ghosts there at all. It's just like,
Sure.
just, think about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the whole Bathsheba Sherman thing, The Conjuring, when that was
Shima Sherman.
when that was released, the owner of the house said that yep, she was indeed tortured, but it was by movie fans trespassing, and she said at all hours of the day there'd be people there invading her privacy and going into the barn to investigate stuff, and she ended up suing Warner Brothers and ended up releasing information about what actually is going on with the house, because she had lived there and kind of like got the history. And she said like looked at public records, and Bathsheba was a real person.
Yeah.
But she was like a lovely lady, and she never lived in that house. She like lived in the town, but she didn't live in that house. And she never killed anyone. No one ever accused her of killing babies. She died peacefully at like, she was like 73 when she died. And she had kids, but they didn't die when they were young, because she actually was paying for her grandkids' tuition right before she died. So the whole Bathsheba Sherman person was like a totally different person. It wasn't this evil witch of a person.
But
that
her
killed
name was
babies.
Bathsheba. It's an evil woman's name.
And also the parents, remember, because like Roger was like kind of like, oh, they came to help us and we called them, but then they wanted to do a seance and I didn't want them to do it. Like, that was the story. Okay. So what happens is they didn't invite the Warrens. Ed and Lorraine just kind of showed up and heard that there was something going on with the house and they wanted to do a seance. So obviously when someone just shows up at your house and is like, hey, I want to do a seance, you're going to be like, no.
Right.
No.
Also, I have this painting.
Yeah. No.
That we did of your
absolutely
house.
not. Get out of my house. You're weird.
Yeah.
And then the mom and the kids are like, let him in. Let's do a seance. He's like, y'all are crazy. What the hell?
Right.
And then they start doing it, and like some weird stuff starts happening. And he's like, no, what are you doing? And he punches them. And that's how he got Ed to leave, was
Right.
to punch him.
Right.
So they did have a seance, and some weird stuff happened for sure. But like, that was not how
That's
they
not the
said it.
setup.
That's not how they said it went. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
So there's that. With the Enfield poltergeist case, Janet admitted later that she was just doing the voice. And in the interviews and stuff where they say like her mouth's not moving, like if you look, like her mouth's moving a little bit, you know?
Right.
So the levitation photo, remember the levitation photo that we had? That kind of just looks like a kid jumping on a bed, doesn't it?
Right. Jumping off the bed.
Jumping off the bed instead of getting hurled off the bed. And you can pull it up and be like, doesn't it look like a kid having a good time? And it was taken with a motion capture camera, so like only Janet knows what happened in the room.
Right.
So
you're not levitating off the bed per se. It's jumping from here.
You're jumping from the bed.
If you look, I know you can't see
couch.
my mouse, but I'm pointing at the ruffles on the bed, and you can see where it's pushed back, like she was projecting herself forward.
Yeah, not like lifted up off the bed and thrown.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so. So there's that.
Yeah.
So and then I guess it was like I think it was the police officer. Or the psychologist. It was like one of the people that interviewed the family that spent a lot of time with them. Admitted in a later interview that Ed told him, he's like, you know, there's a lot of money in this type of thing if you say the right things. And, you know, wasn't like really offering him a bribe, but kind of like saying like, you know,
right,
if you say the right things, people will pay for it. You know what I mean? And so he just kind of declined. So anyway, and then the Snedeker case. The author of the Dark Place, the guy that came in after everything happened, he had said in interviews that the family story was all over the place. And he couldn't get a straight answer out of anybody. And everybody would say something different. And they'd say this happened. And they'd say, no, that didn't happen. This happened. And he said it was just kind of like a really hard thing to write. He said also there was ongoing alcohol abuse and there was some mental health issues that he noticed going on. He said it's hard writing a fiction book when everybody's telling you like 3 or 4 different stories. So he went to Ed with this and he said, Ed, I don't know what I'm supposed to write in this because it's like they're all over the place. I can't write a documentary about this. And Ed said, let me tell you something. He's like, only crazy people call us. He's like, so you just get what you can get and then fill in the rest, just make it scary. And that's what Ed told him. So he was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just fill in the blanks and make it scary. And on top of that, the majority of the incidents were seen by Philip. And Philip actually, I guess, had an incident with one of his cousins where I guess there was like some molestation stuff going on. So they took him to a psychiatrist or a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And he was clinically diagnosed with schizophrenia. And that was something that like, another thing that the Snedekers omitted from their story is that they had lived there for 2 years without an incident. They didn't just move there to go get treatment.
And just to be
and
clear, like having some kind of molestation that does not cause schizophrenia.
No.
I don't know why God felt like he had to put that one in there.
Well, that was the reason where they're like, something's wrong. We need to go see what's going on.
Yes.
And then they found, so yeah, it wasn't that the schizophrenia caused him to do that. Absolutely.
The molestation.
Yeah. I'm not suggesting that in any way, but that was the reason why they're like, hey, something's going on with Philip.
I just want to be clear because it's like this fact, and then it's like, and he had schizophrenia. It's like,
no.
Okay.
In no way are we saying that.
All right.
But that was like something that happened, and then they went there. He needs more care. Obviously.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
So they lived in the house for a while. They didn't just move in. And what had happened was they were behind on their rent, and the landlord was starting the eviction process, and then suddenly they were saying that the house was haunted. It also shares a lot of similarities with a movie called The Entity that came out several years before. But Ray Garden, he said he never actually met Philip. Like, he talked to the family, and he said he never actually met Philip, but he talked to him on the phone, and he asked him, he said, do you see any of these ghosts when you're taking your medication? He said, no, the ghosts go away when I take my medication. And what also is kind of weird is there haven't been any medical records released that Philip had cancer at all. And he may have, and it just wasn't released because we understand, like, you probably aren't just going to release your medical records, but it does kind of seem like they were covering for Philip and and his schizophrenia by saying, "Oh, he has cancer, and that's why we live here, and now we're haunted by ghosts, and don't evict us." And it kind of seems like it's the story that the family may have made up.
Yeah. So it seems like there's all these things around Ed and Lorraine that like just don't quite line up with what they're trying to portray as the story behind these incidents.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
If anything, yeah, it makes these scary, spooky stories, which bring them to more notoriety and fame in what they do, coming from like someone that's really trying to paint pictures of somebody's house, and then moving along that line of, okay, I want to take art and go up this way, and they created art out of unfortunate events. I see here that Sherry says, to be honest, I'm on the fence about the Warrens. I'm not sure I believe in the whole demon thing. Everything's a demon.
Yeah, he was very much.
time.
He was very much
every
like
time.
he was like, it's a demon. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, like, because we're in our final thoughts here, because I mean, we got to wrap it up here.
Yeah, we gotta wrap it up. We went long.
But like, it's unfortunate that they took these events and these investigations and made it look fake.
Well,
Like they made it look real, but like I feel like they make it look bad. Because this shit, to me, like a lot of this stuff is real. Like these kinds of things can happen. There are some kind of unexplained events.
Yeah,
where
and then they
lives
just, like-
leave imprints.
yeah, and then they fanfare it and they make it into something that's like good for a story,
Right.
But like,
stretching the truth in that way.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
no, don't do that.
yeah,
You know, because that's if you're investigating paranormal stuff, Sherry, you know,
Right,
be
yeah.
truthful and
Yeah, you
honest
tell
about
the
your
truth, yeah.
experiences and what the interactions are with these spirits, ghosts, imprints, whatever you want to call them. You know, and that's what's important. That's like to share those stories, not like
yeah, and don't tell your guy to be like, oh, just release that photo.
Yeah,
or
don't tell
or
him.
just make it up as you go. It's fine.
right.
You
Yeah, if
know,
you
like,
shoot, hey,
yeah,
why don't you go hide behind that corner thing? Let me take a pic. No.
yeah, like that's not cool.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Because this stuff, I only live so many years. All of us only live so many years, so we can't understand everything. We barely understand anything. But like, there is stuff that happens like this, and it's unfortunate that they've done this. But that's not to say
We didn't get a lot of good movies out of it.
these are some scary stories.
Yeah.
You know, good work on making up some scary stories.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure. But it would be interesting to go and investigate, like the Conjuring house, just because of that negative energy that's there in that house, and what is left, what imprints are left.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is it? You know, what do you feel when you go there? You know, what are those senses that get all wang dangled? You know. But before we hit the end here, man, we want to remind everybody, go check out Patreon.
Check it out.
I know most of the guys I see over there
Check
in
it
the comments, you guys are already part. You guys are the best. You guys are the absolute best. And we will be getting started back up with all of our cool gym jams and stuff. This month we are taking a bit of a break because we have to get numbers and tours booked and freaking taxes and all that stuff figured out.
Lots of stuff going on.
So I hope you guys understand. Thank you for being patient with us. And we still got to figure out a way to shoot it. Where are we shooting it at?
Yeah, we have getting some ideas together on that.
Yeah, so we're figuring it out. But go over there and check it out if you are new here with us. But that does it. These are our stories, man. I think they are cool and scary. I think Ed and Lorraine are egotistical people that made some cool stories and took some unfortunate events and can kind of make paranormal investigation look bad.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I 100% agree.
That's what I think. Yeah. Kyle, what do you think? You think the same?
Yeah, I think it's sad when you play with people's emotions. You know, especially if people are kind of already scared.
Yeah.
Or like in some situations where they just kind of show up and they're like, "Hey, let's scare you."
Right. Like,
You
I'd be
know?
damned like somebody comes to me, because I shared a story earlier with you guys about my grandmother. If some medium comes up to me and says, "Your grandmother says she loves you," she's going to hit those heartstrings. She's going to fuck with me.
absolutely. And it's
Like,
like,
she might not even get that. You know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Just in my opinion, you stop fucking with people and, like, tell the truth. Like, I don't know. There's probably are people out there that can contact and, like, have some sort of, like, reading into that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put that off the books and say no, but, like,
But you shouldn't do it like that.
you shouldn't do it like that.
'Cause it's-
you shouldn't be making up some shit and
it's
doing, like,
messed up.
do some research before you go and learn that actually there was this girl that died, and then I'm gonna say, oh, it's Annabelle living in that doll, but there was a girl.
Right, there was a girl, and look, here it is in the paper.
Cool.
You know, yeah,
because
like,
I already figured that out before I came here.
yeah, it's snaky stuff.
Snaky. But
Snaky
anyway,
stuff.
that does it for us. We went an hour and a half.
Wow.
Thank you guys for
sticking
bearing with
around,
us,
yeah.
sticking in there. Hopefully we'll see some of you guys tomorrow at the gig. But we love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being a part of this whole thing. You guys really do make living worth it.
Absolutely.
So take care. We will see you guys soon. Bye.